Hello, and welcome back to J.P.s Retro World. Today we go back to our wrestling roots, back when it was J.P.s World of Wrestling. And because today I'm going to, I got to back up. So I just finished a whole series on WrestleMania, where I covered all of the WrestleManias. Well, up to a certain point. Up to the point where they were memorable in my eyes. So I decided that now I'm going to pick a different classic WWF pay per view and I'm going to cover those. And so today I'm covering Summerslam. That's right, WWF Summerslam, which started in 1988. This was something that the WWF came up with because there was such a big pay per view gap between WrestleMania and Survivor Series that they needed something so that they could, make up some money on the pay-per-view circuit, because back then pay-per-view was a big deal. It's not really a thing anymore with streaming and everything, but back then pay-per-view and closed circuit TV, man, that was a big thing. In the late 80s, WWF came up with SummerSlam. Big pay-per-view event that was going to take place in August. So in 1988 is when it started. And so, so in 1988, it was in late August, and it was at Madison Square Garden. And a lot of cool matches on the card. I kind of looked it up. I kind of cheated a little bit. I didn't really watch it first, but I've seen them all like a bunch of times. So, but anyway, so it was a pretty good event. I didn't see it when it was live because back then I didn't really see pay-per-views live. I waited until they would come out on video, and then I would rent the video from a video store or a grocery store that sold or rented videos. So the results on this card were as follows. No. So the British Bulldogs and the Fabulous Rougeau brothers opened things up, and they went to a time limit draw. So, I mean, it's not really, that's kind of the way things went a lot in the 80s when they wanted to push two guys, or they didn't want either person or tag team to lose. They would just have them go time limit draw to make both teams or individuals look strong. And that's kind of what happened here, where they didn't really want either team to lose. So they go, let's do time limit draw. So, and the Rougeaus and the Bulldogs had kind of been feuding, both on camera and backstage, because I think especially Dynamite Kid had a big problem with Jacques Rougeau. And not so much Davy Boy. Davy Boy didn't really have a problem with him, and not so much, Raymond Rougeau. But the other two guys really had an issue with each other back then. Apparently, backstage, I don't know. I wasn't there. But anyway, so they also had a lot of matches on this where I don't really remember the two guys feuding at all, but I don't know. I think it might have been just for the sake of having a match to fill time on the pay-per-view. So next up we had Bad News Brown defeating Ken Patera. And that match was just a regular singles match where Bad News Brown delivered his Ghetto Blaster and beat Ken Patera. But then we had Ravishing Rick Rude versus the Junkyard Dog, in which the Junkyard, or Rick Rude, won by disqualification. Now, the story behind this match is that Rick Rude and Jake the Snake Roberts had been feuding, because Ravishing Rick Rude had been hitting on Jake the Snake Roberts' wife at ringside. If every tour Jake would wrestle, he would bring his wife Cheryl to sit at ringside to watch the matches. So Rick Rude went to her, and he started hitting on her at ringside. So Jake the Snake Roberts obviously didn't care for that, because I know if somebody was hitting on my wife, I wouldn't like it either. So for whatever reason, they didn't want to have that pay-per-view match at SummerSlam. So they had Junkyard Dog versus Rick Rude. So during the match, Junkyard Dog was on the mat. Rick Rude went to the top turnbuckle and tore his tights off. And underneath, he had another pair of tights with a airbrush painting of Cheryl Roberts on his tights. Well, of course, Jake the Snake Roberts obviously didn't care for that. So Jake runs down, interferes in the match, attacks Rude. The referee calls for the bell. And Rick Rude wins the match by DQ. And then afterwards, Jake the Snake Roberts had to explain to JYD, hey, this guy had a picture of my wife on his tights. And you could visibly see JYD saying the F word. So, anyway, then the Powers of Pain beat the Bolsheviks, and that's back when the Powers of Pain were baby faces. They were good guys, and they were managed by Baron von Raschke. That didn't last long. Anyway, so then we had an Intercontinental Championship match. Now, the Honky Tonk Man had been the Intercontinental Champion for a long time. He had been the longest running IC champ up to this point. And so, being full of confidence, I'm going to... There, because my top of my head was getting cut off. Anyway, so, Honky Tonk Man, being full of confidence, being egged on by his manager Jimmy Hart, he comes to the ring and says, bring somebody out here. I don't care who it is. I'll wrestle anybody. I'll put my title on the line. I don't care who it is. So then the Warrior's music starts playing. The Warrior runs down to the ring, beats the Honky Tonk Man before he even has a chance to get out of his jumpsuit. And the Warrior becomes the new Intercontinental Champion. Just like that. After all that time, Honky being the champion, Rick Rude or the Warrior beats him just like that. So, and then of course we had Don Morocco versus Dino Bravo, in which Dino Bravo went over. I think those guys were feuding at the time, but Dino Bravo won. And then Demolition beat the Hart Foundation. I don't think it was for the titles, but anyway. And then the Big Boss Man beat Coco Beware. Okay, I like Boss Man. And then Jake the Snake Roberts was victorious over Hercules. Now, Hercules, I believe, was still a bad guy at this time. So Jake the Snake Roberts, this is the second time we'd see him, but I guess his rage fueled him in his defeat over Hercules. Anyway, so then, in the main event, we had the Mega Powers, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man, taking on the Mega Bucks, Andre the Giant and the $1 Million Man. So, at WrestleMania, that was the year of WrestleMania 4, right before that, there was a thing where Hulk Hogan was the champion, but then $1 Million Man, who at this point was brand new in the WWF, he came in and offered to buy the championship from Hogan. Hogan told him no, so then DiBiase hired Andre to beat Hogan. They screwed Hogan out of the title. And so then Andre sold the title to DiBiase, but then Jack Tunney, the WWF president, told DiBiase, I'm not going to allow this. You can't win the title that way. You have to earn the title. So he stripped DiBiase the belt. We had the tournament at WrestleMania. Macho Man won the tournament, but the feud continued with Macho and the $1 Million Man. So DiBiase tagged up with Andre. Macho, of course, tagged up with Hogan. And that's where we had the match. And in the match, we had a special guest referee, which was Jesse the Body Ventura, a controversial figure in the WWF at the time. Actually, he's still controversial. But nevertheless, he was the guest referee. And at the end, Mega Powers won the match, but it was clear that Ventura didn't like counting to 3 because he went 1, 2, and then Macho Man pushed his hand down for a 3. Mega Powers win the match. They win the big main event of the first ever Summerslam. Yay, baby faces win. So, which is good, because it would only be a matter of months before the Mega Powers, split ways. So, SummerSlam 1988, the tagline was Feel the Heat, because things were heating up in the WWF at the time. So overall, I give it a thumbs up. I liked SummerSlam '88. Of course, I liked all of them back in those days. I wasn't really picky. I'm not like one of these that watches wrestling and analyzes every single move, every single nuance, and every single thing that they do in the match. And I know people that produce wrestling or write wrestling will tell you, "Oh, well, that match wasn't very good." I'm like, I don't. I liked it. So I was a kid. I wasn't really very picky. So anyway, SummerSlam 1988. Yes. Okay. So that is gonna do it for this video. And by the way, I know I've been doing a lot of movie reviews, and the last one I did was Karate Kid, and not very many of you dug that. But, it's okay. At least 2 of you watched, and that's okay. But I'm going to try to pepper in more wrestling stuff. I know that's originally why a lot of you subscribe to my channel. So I'm going to try to do a lot more wrestling stuff. The problem was after a while I kind of ran out of stuff to talk about. But now, actually, the action figure matches seem to be the most popular thing that I do. Those I get like over 40 views usually. So I'll probably try to do a lot more of those. Keep this thing going. Anyway, but that is going to do it for SummerSlam 1988. So if you're new, please feel free to go ahead and click the like button and click the subscribe button. That helps me out too. And I will see you next time.